I'm Kerry Shale.
And I'm Daniel Crespin.
And this is Bob Dylan.
Approximately.
Daniel, I understand you've got something a little special for us today. Is this true?
I do indeed. This is an arrangement of All Along the Watchtower that I did probably drunk in a basement flat in Clapham when I was 22. And it's been almost consistently the opening of my set every night ever since, every time I've played. So
hit us with your rhythm stick.
There must be some way out of here, said the joker to the thief. There's too much confusion, I can't get no relief. Businessmen, they drink my wine and plowmen dig my head. None of them along the line know what any of it is worth. No reason to get excited. The thief, he kindly spoke. There are many here among us who feel that life is but a joke. But you and I, we've been through that, and this is not our fate. So let us not talk falsely now. The hour is getting late. All along the watchtower, princes kept the view, while all the women came and went, barefoot servants too. Outside in the distance, a wildcat did grow. Two riders approaching, the wind began to howl. There we are.
Very beautiful. So some people are probably wondering why we're opening our Bob Dylan podcast with the Jimi Hendrix song. No, you know, I looked up on Google when we started preparing this. I Googled All Along the Watchtower. Google told me a song by Jimi Hendrix. That's the first thing that came up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great cover of the song, and it's actually Dylan's favourite version of the song. And I think what a compliment for Bob Dylan, who's been covered more than, almost anyone except the Beatles. He said this is how the song was supposed to sound to him, and his live versions since have all been based upon that. But for me, there's something about the original version that keeps it's dark and it's claustrophobic and in some ways a terrifying song, I feel. There's a rolling chord progression that you don't get in the Hendrix version. It's like you're looking through a kaleidoscope or something. You're just about to get your footing back on the path at the end of each phrase, and then it drops again into the next one.
Well, I never get tired of Dylan's version, or I must say Hendrix's version, but Dylan's version rocks as hard as Hendrix's version, with just the acoustic guitar, the bass, and the little bit of drums.
It's amazing what he manages to do on this album as a whole with such a spare.
I mean, we both love this album so much that we're going against our tradition of generally choosing two songs that are from different time periods and really have nothing to do with each other, to two songs that were recorded. I don't know if they were recorded at the same session, but I mean, he recorded it so quickly, it's near as damn it.
3 sessions, 12 hours worth of work in the studio over 3 sessions for John Wesley Harding, the album, which is amazing. I just want to, because I want to shout out the channel, which I already have, I think, but Nerd Writer, which you seem to have enjoyed as well. He did a video, great channel on YouTube if you guys get to check it out. He did a video shortly after Bob won the Nobel Prize, and a lot of people were going, why is Bob Dylan, a songwriter, getting a prize for literature? And the video opens with this quote. It says, "There are some novels, some trilogies even, with less actual content than Bob Dylan's All Along the Watchtower. It's astonishing what Dylan achieves in 12 lines, 130 words, and 2.5 minutes." And I couldn't agree more. It's the rolling chord progression, I think, and that feeling of sort of, I feel trapped in the song almost. It's not a comfortable song, and that also fits with the fact that the final 2 lines could also be the first 2 lines. You know, you've got outside in the distance, a wild cat did growl, 2 riders were approaching, the wind began to howl. There must be some way out of here, said the Joker to the thief. It never ends. It's like you're trapped in purgatory or hell or somewhere.
No, exactly. I mean, for people who happen to be listening to this podcast who don't know that much about Bob Dylan, let's just give it a little background. So this was his first album since his motorcycle crash in the summer of '66. And it was his first album since he laid down his electric guitar, which he picked up. And it was his first album basically since becoming a family man.
Yeah.
And what does he come up with? He doesn't come up with Nashville Skyline, which, you know, followed this, which is about being a family man, at least a certain amount of it is. He comes up with this apocalyptic vision of almost horror, taken directly from the Bible, of all the horrible, horrible things, you know, that can happen to human beings.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got the actual the bit of the Bible it's from. It's Isaiah 21, verses 5-9. "Prepare the table, watch in the watchtower, eat, drink, arise ye princes, and prepare the shield. For thus hath the Lord said unto me, Go set a watchman, let him declare what he seeth." And it goes on, and he saw a chariot, with a couple of horsemen, and he answered and said, "Babylon is fallen, and all the graven images of her gods he hath broken unto the ground." So the part of the Bible it's from is apocalyptic enough. But I don't know, maybe I'm imposing my, as I often do, as we all do.
That's what
music.
Bob is for.
Yeah, because that's the thing. You
impose stuff.
Yeah, you can never really, he'll never tell us, for one.
Yeah.
But also you can never truly tell what a Bob Dylan song's about. But for me, it goes back a little bit to what we were talking in a previous episode about Highway 61. It's, you know, that sort of critique of American capitalism, but particularly the music business and the entertainment business for me. I mean, maybe it's because we're in it. We're in the show business.
Yeah, the industry.
The industry.
Yeah.
To me, the people in the Watchtower are producers and gatekeepers, casting directors, looking down, not knowing what anything is worth. None of it's about purity. None of it's really about talent. It's about marketing and commodifying something, packaging it, tying it up with a little bow and force-feeding it down the world's throat.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I mean, we're going to get on to Frankie Lee and Judas Priest, which I think has some of that in it as well. But one of the lines that jumps, there's only a few lines, but one of the lines that jumps out to me is, "While all the women came and went, barefoot servants too." Because that, although it sounds kind of like a biblical line, to me that's kind of like Dylan's life. There were a lot of women in Dylan's life before he settled down in Woodstock and became a married man. So while all the women came and went, and barefoot servants too. I mean, Dylan was being treated like a god on that, that last tour, his last few. I mean, the audiences were booing, but backstage, everyone was acknowledging Bob's genius, and he's always tried to get away from that, even back then. I mean, actually, this morning, and I meant to send this to you, but I didn't. I don't know if you came across it. Dylan's birthday, his 84th birthday, was a couple of days ago.
Yep.
Did you see this thing? This thing that appeared that was an interview by Elliot Mintz.
No.
Elliot Mintz was like he was John and Yoko's publicist, and he's become I think he's become Dylan's publicist, or certainly has an in with Dylan. He did an interview with Dylan, and they released a bit of it on Instagram, which I saw just like a few hours ago this morning. And in it, Elliot Mintz asks Dylan about his art. Or basically, first of all, he says about the thin, wild, Mercury sound. And he said, so what did you really mean by that? And Dylan says, I never said that. Somebody made that up.
Yeah.
Which I don't really believe, because Dylan says, it sounds like something I'd never say.
Yeah.
I thought, no, it sounds exactly like something you'd say.
Yeah, it does.
But anyway, he says no. And then he says, well, what do you... He says something about art, Elliot Mintz. And Dylan says, I don't do art. This is the thing that kind of shocked me. He said, I don't do art. He said, I'm on the stage. It's like the theater. It's like it's performance. And he actually sort of goes against all the stuff that you and I have been saying to each other, that it is art, that it is poetry.
It's like his whole life is a piece of performance art. It's how I feel about Bob. But also, him saying, I can't remember ever saying that. From what I've heard of Bob speaking, he's not one for looking back. Like, in the Rolling Thunder documentary with Scorsese, he's asked about it, and they do this brilliant, like, sort of almost outtake, but they keep it in. And he goes, I can't remember a thing about the Rolling Thunder. I wasn't even born then. It's like, it was just crappy bullshit.
But getting back to All Along the Watchtower, one thing I noticed, that there are 10 characters introduced in those 12 lines, talking about telling a story. There's the Joker, there's the thief, there's businessmen, there's plowmen, there's princes, there's women, there's barefoot servants, and there's a wildcat, if you can call that a character, and there's these two riders. So it's amazingly compact poetry, really. Sorry, Bob.
Yeah, it absolutely
it's
is poetry. And I just want to get back to the thing you said about the women and the barefoot servants.
Yeah.
That's absolutely one take of it. My take, strangely, maybe I'm just in this headspace about the industry man at the moment, but I thought Prince is ironically keeping view, these masters overlooking things, women coming and going. Well, we know Hollywood sexual proclivities have all come out, it's been happening since the dawn of Hollywood. Barefoot servants, people being mistreated. I think there's a lot in there about the two outsider characters, the Joker and the thief, are kind of, to me, looking over all of this and looking at the other characters' illusion. It's like they're bought into the system and the illusion. But you and we've been through that. And this is not our fate.
Right.
But they don't know what's coming for them because the apocalypse is about to come and the winds begins to howl.
Yeah, well, it was also, I get that. And the whole album was sort of so non-showbiz, so not what was happening. I mean, we'll go into that more deeply in the second half of this podcast. But I discovered in my research that it was released on December 27th.
Was it?
Yeah, like the worst day ever. 2 days after Christmas.
Weird gap between
Let's just go out and buy the new Bob Dylan
Christmas
album.
and New Year.
It's like the worst time. And I knowing Dylan, because he was getting control over his career now, it was like, let's put it out in the worst time of year ever. And despite that, it became his biggest selling album to date.
Yeah, and one of the most critically acclaimed, like immediately critically acclaimed, wasn't it? It went to number one, I think number two over here. But
But it was so far out there, considering the Summer of Love.
Yeah.
That, the ball, I always thinking about this guy. The balls on this guy.
Absolutely. I think... I'm trying to figure, what was he doing with this album? Where did it come from? Because it does seem he's taking a his foot off the pedal, through necessity. But you would think, there's some relief in that. But you get this album of death and destruction in many ways. It's a really claustrophobic album, I feel.
He can't get no relief.
Yeah.
And I've read that there's virtually nothing written sort of about it. People have written about it, but nobody knows anything about it. People think that he wrote a few of the songs, I'm not sure which ones, on the train down from New York to Nashville.
Right.
That's how his head was exploding.
Yeah.
I did try to get on. This is the first time I've mentioned it, but I used to do a previous podcast about Bob Dylan called "Is It Rolling Bob," and we interviewed Charlie McCoy, who played bass on John Wesley Harding and was involved in all the Nashville recordings, and I was so keen to get something out of him, but and he was a lovely guy and a total showbiz professional. And so I said, what was it like, particularly doing the John Wesley Harding album? And he said, Bob didn't say anything. He gave us, he played us a bit before we started, and then we just rolled, and he never chatted except about the music. Like he'd never seemingly had any sort of outside chat with Dylan, but he had a huge respect for him, as a musician. And still does. And I don't think it's, showbiz bullshit. I think he really did. He wasn't in awe of him. The thing that you forget is you see pictures of, say, Charlie McCoy now, and he's pretty much Dylan's age. So he was a young man just like Dylan. They were all young guys. Yeah. They were just shit-hot musicians. Amazing musicians. And I did read the other thing I read about Charlie McCoy was that Elvis famously covered Tomorrow Is a Long Time, that Charlie McCoy brought that to Elvis. I hadn't realized that. And said, you've heard of Bob Dylan, right? Yeah. Well, you might want to check out this song. And so that's how that came to be.
I heard Bob was really touched by that because he's such an Elvis fan. That must have been not many things I imagine make Bob kind of starstruck.
He said, I've got the quote somewhere. Probably when we cover Tomorrow Was a Long Time, I will find the exact Elvis quote, but it was the exact Dylan quote. But he said something like, "It meant more to me than anything."
Yeah. I keep quoting critics on this podcast, it seems, but there are a few that I just really love, and there's John Landau said about John Wesley Harding, for an album of this kind to be released amid Sgt. Pepper, Their Satanic Majesty's request, after bathing at Baxter's, somebody must have had a lot of confidence in what he was doing. Dylan seems to feel no need to respond to the predominant trends in pop music at all, and he is the only major pop artist about whom this can be said. And it is a real sort of, whether he meant it to be or not, but it's a fuck you.
He's also just being himself, which he always is. He doesn't know how not to be himself, except occasionally, during the Neil Diamond period, or the Budokan, albums, say. I must say, he covered it, and I like it. Weirdly, it's got this apocalyptic flute on it, which, who else would do that?
Apocalyptic jazz flute.
Yes, exactly. But I think it works. I don't think everything on that album works, although I even like the failures really on that album. But as far as the covers, first of all, this song, All Along the Watchtower, has been performed more than any other song that Dylan has ever done.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if it's been covered more, but I went through a bunch of the covers because, I tend to love, at least be interested in covers, Dylan covers. And I would say that I would like to nominate the two most boring covers of this song. One is by Dylan and the Dead on the Dylan and the Dead album.
Just a dreadful
It just
album.
goes on forever.
Yeah.
And the other one, this one may be a bit more controversial, is I was listening to Neil Young's at Bobfest. And to me, it's just like a thrash, he just thrashes it out. And it runs about 6 minutes. And after about 3 or 4 minutes, I think, oh, Neil, shut up. Really, what's the point? Because Hendrix did something with it. Hendrix was as concise as Dylan. Hendrix was like a short sort of symphony.
But also he makes the guitar sound like it's a character in itself. It's the howling wind, which you don't get as a character just from the lyrics, but you do with this amazing guitar. 2,311 times it's been played live by Dylan, and he's playing on the Outlaw Music Tour right now. So probably be 2,313.
But on the Outlaw Music Tour now, it's probably God knows. I mean, they must be. They must be. That's it. You've nailed it. But the most beautiful cover I came across, I don't know if you've heard it, is by a gospel group called the Brothers and Sisters.
No.
I really recommend it. You can find it on Spotify. It's the album is called Dylan's Gospel. And it's a beautiful, it's quite danceable, actually. It sort of rocks in its own way. And it's beautifully sung. The voices are wonderful. I mean, I just never get tired of good Dylan covers. But there has to be a reason to cover Dylan. And for instance, the Neil Young, version, as far as I'm concerned, at the Bob Fest, like a lot of the songs at the Bob Fest are just, I'm just going to sing a Dylan song.
Yeah.
Without any thought, without any, you put a lot of effort into yours, and I appreciate that. And I do. You've got to find a different way in.
I think so. There's just no point otherwise, because it's been done by one of the greatest songwriters of all time. So I think you've got to find something that maybe because he often, as a fan, there's certain bits of songs that I really connect to that I think he doesn't push. And I sometimes enjoy covering him live and pushing those bits. But I just want to talk about, because we've talked about kind of, there's a lot of outlaw characters in Bob's songs. And I feel like the Joker and the Thief, they're these outlaws. He loves people on the fringes of society looking out. So, chimes of freedom here, but deaf and blind, the mute, the mistreated mateless mother, the mistitled prostitute, the misdemeanor outlaw, chased and cheated by pursuit. He loves an outlaw. And I think the Joker and there's so much talk about who the Joker and the Thief are.
Yeah.
To me, with the reading of the song that I have, which is totally personal, I realise is shaped by my own career and life, etc.
Yeah.
But it's artists. I think it's
Interesting.
two great artists. Whether that people say the Joker's Dylan and the Thief's Elvis or whatever, I don't really buy that. But I think it's two great artists. Kind of, you and I, we've been through that. We've seen through it. These businessmen will, take the art. They don't know what any of it's worth, but they'll sell it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to know about the cover of your forthcoming album.
Highway 61 Revisited? Okay.
That T-shirt that you're wearing with the Triumph motorcycle on it?
What do you want to know about it?
Well, it means something, right? It's got a philosophy in it.
I haven't really looked at it that much.
I've thought about it a great deal.
I don't really remember too much about it.
What about motorcycles as an image in your songwriting? You seem to like that.
Oh, well, we all like motorcycles to some degree.
Do you subscribe to any particular theory?
I don't subscribe to anything. Except maybe the Bob Dylan Approximately podcast.
What? What's a podcast?
I don't think we have enough time to really go into that. Just press subscribe. Oh, and maybe rate and review, too.
Press what? Rate what? What does that mean?
You're a cow. Give me some milk or else go home.
He blew his mind out in a car. He didn't notice that the lights had changed. A crowd of people stood and stared. They'd seen his face before. Nobody was really sure if he was from the House of Lords. So, that is obviously from Sgt. Pepper from A Day in the Life. We're just going to talk about that just because we've been talking about 1967 and John Wesley Harding. So, where to start? I'm just going to give you a few statistics that I found. Sgt. Pepper took 700 hours to record.
So John Wesley Harding
12. But both albums are more or less 39 minutes long, so they're both about the same length.
Which is long for a Beatles album. Beatles generally it's about 30 to 33 minutes.
For 700 hours, you'd think. But and John Wesley Harding sold 3.2 million copies, which was Dylan's biggest seller to that date. Sgt. Pepper sold 32 million copies. So there's nice synchronicity.
Yeah.
Sgt. Pepper won 4 Grammy Awards, including Album of the Year. It was the first rock album to win Best Album, and that was like the beginning of the end for Frank Sinatra and those boys. And it was a concept album, Sgt. Pepper, performed by this fantasy band exploring England, past and present, where John Wesley Harding was also kind of a concept album. He would never have called it that. Sung by a solo singer exploring biblical morality and American history. So I've got much more to say, particularly about that song, but we've not talked about you're a 30-year-old man person.
man guy man boy. Man guy man boy.
What do you, they were like ancient history to you, right?
But so is Dylan,
Yeah, this is true.
I think, and I know that I'm not alone with, real people who love music but are of my generation in not quite understanding the big hype around the Beatles, kind of going, well, it must be to do with the fact that they were doing something completely new that had never been done before. In preparation for this episode, I went and listened to the 2 latest releases, which are the basically greatest hits 1962 to 66 and then 67 to 70. So it kind of covers everything chronologically in little dribs and drabs. So forgive me. I don't want to offend any Beatles fans. I think they've got some great songs. I can appreciate a lot of their stuff. But for me, up until Abbey Road, so near the end of the Beatles, there's nothing that I listen to that I think, wow, that's super ahead of its time and amazing and sounds like it could be released today. I was listening to 8 Days a Week, and I was thinking, so in this year, in fact, it might have even been 8 Days a Week, probably I think is after this, but while Dylan was writing lyrics like I've stumbled on the side of 12 misty mountains, walked and I've crawled through 6 crooked highway, all this, they're saying, ooh, I need your love, babe, guess you know it's true, love me, hold me, ain't got nothing, but I don't I had this thought in my head, and I'm being facetious, obviously, but when it starts to get interesting for me around when they go to Indian psychedelics and all that. It does start to get interesting, and I do love parts of Sgt. Pepper and all that. But to me, if Dylan is the friend you've got who's wise and humble and has learned a lot of truths through pain and suffering, and maybe went to rehab or went through grief at a young age and has just had to be humbled by life and learnt wisdom through that, then the Beatles are your friend who went into finance, then went to Glastonbury, took an acid trip and came back and thought they knew everything about the fucking world.
Oh, man.
Sorry, I'm being slightly facetious.
Let me just get this arrow out of my heart.
So, I have a lot of time for a lot of Beatles songs. I think they're great. I mean, Yesterday is one of the...
But if just going back, that's very interesting. We can have many long conversations off mic
of course.
About this. But... for instance, 8 Days a Week, you left out one of the best bits of the song, which is the feedback beginning, which had never, it had been done before in bits and pieces, but it had never been done before on a major release. That and the Beatles' music, like you were talking about who Bob is, which I totally agree with you, but the Beatles were kind of sonic pioneers. Yeah. And, that particular single, 8 Days a Week, that's, nobody had ever heard. I'd never heard that. So I was alive back then. Yeah. So, and it's the same sort of thing. I hate to pull that card, but I'm not pulling it.
No, I think it's totally legitimate.
It's when your mind is blown you remember it, and your mind was blown by Bob Dylan, even though he wasn't around when your mind was blown. But my mind was blown by the Beatles. Like I was so into the Beatles when, say, let's go back to Sgt. Pepper when it came out. It came out a week before my 16th birthday. So although maybe if I'd been like 17 or 18, it might have blown my mind in a completely different way. I mean, I was, everybody got it the day it came out, and it was that summer, and everybody was listening to it. But to me, the things like, who was the lucky man who made the grade?
This is a great song, by the way. There's so many great Beatles songs.
Yeah.
I'm not saying.
I mean, and I chose this, or we discussed choosing this because in Sgt. Pepper, it really is the mind-blowing one. There are things like, I'd never heard of the Albert Hall. I'd never heard of Blackburn. Lancashire. Yeah. Like, what is a Blackburn, Lancashire? And what does it mean to get turned on? Like, I'd love to turn you on.
Yeah.
What does that mean? So to me, this was like, and I cannot even describe to you when you turned it over. First of all, you saw them dressed in these funny costumes, but on the back of it, there were the lyrics to the songs. Now, that had never been done before.
Yeah.
And then the front of it, And
Dylan's on the cover of Sgt. Pepper,
Dylan's on the cover.
Yeah.
John.
As is Aleister Crowley. I love
that. I mean, Diana Dors, who are these people? But did you know that John suggested Dylan be included? John Lennon, like I know him. He also suggested two other guys who were dropped at the last minute, but who were there in the original. Hitler and Jesus.
Right.
Good old John Lennon.
Not that they ever got in trouble about Jesus, did
exactly.
they? Yeah.
But I mean, to me, I listen back to it, and it's nothing but memories. Like I can see how it may be irrelevant to somebody who's not my age. But it kind of, like, I kind of grew with it, because I remember the first time I listened to it, I was completely straight. I was like a really top student young kid who wanted...
you saying Rainy Day Women scared you.
Rainy Day Women was way too scary. Bob Dylan was way too scary for me. But the Beatles were like, they were cuddly. They were like those guys, even though they weren't. But their persona, getting into them, like John Lennon was like the least cuddly guy in the world, but he put on his cuddly face, for them, and they got into their suits and they stole our hearts away. But by the next year, 1968, when I was smoking dope, I would listen to it, and everything was kind of revealed.
Yeah,
and I understood what "I'd Love to Turn You On" meant. And, it's not Bob Dylan, but it's the Beatles. And to me, in a way, the Beatles kind of led me to Bob Dylan. He was like too scary. But the Beatles led me certainly to drugs.
Yeah.
Which led, like nice drugs.
Nice drugs.
Like grass that you would smoke back in the 60s, which was like not like today. And you could sit in the dark, and I would sit in the dark and listen particularly to A Day in the Life. And I would listen to that piano chord the way it was meant to be listened to, in a way, stoned, in the dark, over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I just listened to the song over and over and over again. And it was nothing but pleasure. There was it wasn't scary like I think John Wesley Harding songs.
I think there's a few things I want to say, but I think that I've spoken to you off mic about this, but there's a clip I saw with Jack Osbourne talking to Ozzy and Sharon about, I don't get the Beatles, mate. He's, a bit older than me, but of a similar generation, and I don't get the Beatles, man. And Ozzy says something that's very wise for Ozzy, considering the amount of drugs he's put into his system. But he goes, you don't understand. He said, 1960s in Birmingham, life looked grey. Everything was grey. And then the Beatles came. The first time you heard it, it was like everything went into Technicolor. And I can...
That's totally... Yeah. That's perfect.
Yeah. And, I think I could be... I've actually, after having listened to those two, they're like an hour and a half each, these kind of greatest hits selections. I'm going to go back and do something I haven't done since I was in my teens, which is listen to the whole discography of the Beatles, because it doesn't take that long.
Yeah.
I like the White Album. People who are my age who want to sound trendy say, "Oh, Rubber Soul and Revolver." Some good songs doesn't get me. Abbey Road, I love. I think it's a genius album. But I love, we don't know if he actually said this, but there's a story, isn't it, that the Beatles played Dylan Sgt. Pepper, and then when it finished, he kind of waited for a while. And he goes, "Oh, I get it. You guys don't want to be cute anymore."
Yeah.
If that's true,
yeah,
that's brilliant.
I mean, the Beatles were not intimidated by a lot of people. Probably, maybe Little Richard when they toured with him. When they were supporting him, I would think, and the great old rock and rollers like Elvis. But Dylan was always one step ahead of them. Like, it's not apocryphal. They've talked about it. Dylan gave them their first marijuana cigarette.
Yeah.
Dylan changed their music in so many ways, but that's a big way to change the music.
Well, this is, I think, maybe as a real Bob fanatic, this is maybe what annoys me about the Beatles. It's not the Beatles' fault, but people go, "Oh, Bob was so influenced by Bob in 1965, 66 was copying the Beatles." Fuck off, was he? Sorry, Tombstone Blues isn't. Yeah,
no. Bob Dylan was he was ahead of the Beatles lyrically, but not, as far as I'm concerned, musically necessarily.
I know what you mean. Yeah,
the Beatles, like, what were they doing on Sgt. Pepper? I mean, they were experimenting. They were experimenting wildly and crazily, and just hearing the sitar, for instance, which they'd used before, but hearing "Within You, Without You," and hearing the lyrics on "Within You, Without You," again, like, blew my little mind. They're very simple lyrics, like George Harrison's lyrics tend to be, but they're very, very
they're
deep.
Incredibly as someone who's studied a lot of Buddhism, it's incredibly Buddhist imagery, and or Hindu to some extent, which is probably where they got it from. But I'm yet to be a total Beatles convert, but I do love some of their stuff.
Watch this space.
And who's your favourite Beatle?
Oh, that's very wow. John. It's he's surly and he's a smart ass, and I always thought Paul was ridiculously. I was probably a little in love with Paul. Like, who wasn't? I mean, at least at that time, because he was really sexy. But John looked weird and tortured. And I've never been quiet, so I've never gone for the quiet Beatle, George.
I see. George is mine. I love, like, maybe it's a guitarist thing, but "While My Guitar Gently Weeps" and "Here Comes the Sun," I think he's because of how good Paul and John were, I think he's a really underrated songwriter.
And then there's Ringo.
Who I have to say, drummers absolutely seem to, I don't get it, but having actually heard 3 hours worth of Beatles stuff, I'm like, he's nothing if not absolutely like a metronome man, which is not but hard. He's really, as everybody to do.
Yeah, and he's really appropriate. Like, he doesn't show off. That's another thing drummers are not supposed to do. What's his name is Zach Starkey has just been fired by the Who for being like, "Look at me, I'm the drummer."
Which is a bit rich considering Keith Moon was their original drummer.
I know, but he was probably a better drummer.
Maybe.
Hey, just a quick message to say that if you're enjoying Bob Dylan Approximately, why not consider becoming a Bobsessive over at our Patreon page.
For just £5 a month, you'll get access to longer bonus episodes, early access to all episodes, and a whole range of exclusive membership benefits.
The link to our Patreon page is in the episode notes, wherever you're listening to this podcast.
We do hope you receive it well.
Depending on the way you feel that you live. Well, Frankie Lee and Judas Priest, they were the best of friends. So when Frankie Lee needed money one day, Judas quickly pulled out a roll of tens and placed them on a footstool just above the plotted plane, saying, "Take your pick, Frankie boy. My loss will be your gain." And so it goes.
Plotted plane, I always love.
Plotted plane. Well, that's, as you know, that keeps me up at night. Plotted plane. I mean, do you have any ideas?
No idea.
It's completely random. It's like he's taken a dictionary and just chosen two words. Anyway, if anybody out there would like to explain the relevance of plotted plane, please do get in touch.
Yeah.
But first of all, who are the two main characters? So Frankie Lee, He's a gambler, we learn. That's all we learn, really. Gamblers are performers. They like an audience. Is Frankie Dylan? Now we're rolling into my theory here.
Yeah.
So Judas Priest is clearly used to dealing with money. He's loaded. He's in charge of the money in this song. Is he Albert Grossman?
Yeah.
So take your pick, Frankie boy. Could be Grossman laying out the world of money and women and power for Bob Dylan.
It's not the first on the album that's a sling at Grossman.
Yes.
Dear Landlord is clearly Grossman.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he's quite passive-aggressive with it. You better choose which of those bills you want before they all disappear. We've got a tour. I've set up another tour. In fact, he had set up another tour, and I was looking at the statistics about the tour. It was going to be a huge tour that Dylan was going to go on, except that he crashed his motorcycle. Or did he? And I'm wondering if the 4 and 20 windows, which we get to eventually, or the 4 and 20 stadiums. Now, it wasn't 4 and 20, but I did read that at the time of the motorcycle crash, he'd been booked to do this tour, at one date of which was to do Shea Stadium.
Oh, wow.
I didn't realize, this was going to be like the huge tour that basically Dylan ended up doing with the band.
Yeah.
It was going to be that big. Anyway, so that's just the beginning of my Dylan and Grossman. In fact, I've got I'm going to get something out of my bag here. One second.
We have a little bag. Pause.
Yes, I've got. No, we're not a pause. I think it's here, but I did forget to take it out. I found this book the other day in FOP. Do you know FOP? Covent Garden.
Yes.
It's a great place to just, if you're just passing by.
I've seen the sign. That's why
exactly.
I know. I'm like, I can see the sign in my head.
Because they've got, I bought this book for $5. It was just at the top of a pile. I'd never seen it before. It says Bob Dylan, the fullest ever anthology of writing about rock's greatest poet, edited by Sean Egan. Well, it turns out that Sean Egan basically writes at least half of the book. He writes an article on every album. Anyway, I've got this in the loo, with all my other Bob Dylan books. And I was flicking through it the other day, and I came upon this thing about Dylan and Grossman, which I'm going to attempt to read. It's still quite dark in here. So here's a few paragraphs about Dylan and Grossman. A measure of Dylan's relationship with his manager is found in the tone and style he uses in talking to Grossman. Oh, by the way, this isn't by Sean Egan. This was done for the Saturday Evening Post. It's by somebody called Jules Siegel, and it came out in 1966. So this is Dylan and Grossman, circa 66, before they're split up, their breakup really around 67. So even in the most ordinary conversation, Dylan can be almost impossible to understand. This is Dylan talking to other people. He is often vague, poetic, repetitive, confusing, but his flow of imagery can be startlingly precise and original, and the line of his thought brilliantly adventurous, funny, and penetrating. So, in describing his music, he will say, "It's all math, simple math, involved in mathematics. There's a definite number of cold 45s that make up Marlene Dietrich, and you can find that out if you want to." What? Yeah. So he goes on to say, that kind of talk is not useful for more than a few situations. Nonetheless, it is the way Dylan speaks to fans, to disc jockeys, to reporters, to acquaintances, and frequently to friends. It is not the way he speaks to Grossman. Then his voice often goes into a little piping whine, the voice of a little boy complaining to his father. Thus, after a concert on the West Coast, so this guy shadowed Dylan.
Right.
At 3:00 in the morning, I told Dylan that his voice was not heard over the blast of electronically amplified instruments. Grossman lay dozing on the hotel bed, his tinted glasses still on, a slight smile of repose on his heavy face. "Albert!" Dylan cried. "Albert! Did you hear that? They couldn't hear me! Albert, they couldn't hear me! What good is it if they can't hear me, man? We gotta get the sound man out here to fix it. What do you think, Albert?" Now, Albert's asleep when he's talking. Grossman stirred himself on the bed and answered soothingly, "I told you in the car that the volume was too high. Just cut the volume by about a third and it'll be all right." Grossman went back to sleep, very much like an Occidental Buddha, snoring lightly. Dylan was satisfied. So anyway, that was an interesting little peek into their relationship.
Yeah.
Dylan was the coolest man in the universe, except when he was talking to Grossman. And so I think going back to, Frankie Lee and Judas Priest, I think I didn't make up this theory, clearly. A lot of people have said this, but I think it's quite a good spin on it.
Yeah, and I think especially I'm not sure, but if it is, it makes sense because Frankie Lee is very, within the song, very sort of gullible and naive and young seeming, which Dylan doesn't. It's interesting for Dylan, if it is Dylan, to present himself that way. But I don't know. It could be so many things. It could be. I mean, the very one is Judas is the devil, and it's like the Passion of Christ sort of thing. The Temptation of Christ. Sorry, which I don't think is. Again, I think maybe it's sort of a cautionary tale about the music industry in a way. It's sort of that sell your soul to the devil at the crossroads type thing. My loss will be your gain. What's the line that I was going to say? All right, I'll leave you here, but you'd better hurry up and choose which of those bills you want before they all disappear. I love that. It seems like it's not a...
It is a bit music businessy because it's sort of like we've got the wave now. We've got the zeitgeist now. The kids are hip to you now.
Yeah.
Don't, for God's sake, crash your motorcycle.
Yeah. And haul yourself up in northern New York State.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Dylan told Rolling Stone in 1969, I found this, and this is a quote, that Frankie Lee and Judas Priest was, quote, a real funny song, a joke. So that's what he said. He said it was a real funny song, a joke. Now, is he bullshitting completely, as he often does? Or is it a send-up of maybe folk ballads? Or is it or does he have the weirdest sense of humor of anybody who's ever lived? I mean, I'm willing to go with that. But I do think it is actually quite funny because when he says, I almost laugh each time I hear him sing, "Oh, yes, he is my friend."
Oh, yes, he is my friend.
It's so weird. And also even soulful bounding leap. It's not that he's trying to be funny, but there's something so... They jump out of this song.
There is something... I mean, first of all, the guitar is deliberately out of tune, which immediately gives it this kind of like off-kilter weird thing. It's the chord progression is quite jaunty, but there is humour in there. I mean, you've got this really obtuse, mysterious first three verses, and then there's far more than that. But the moral of this story, the moral of the song, is that one should simply be where one does not belong, and don't go mistaking paradise for that home across the road. It's like this cautionary tale, but there is something funny. I just love the rhyming of eternity and Frankie Lee. I love that bit. Yeah, you might call eternity, said Frankie Lee. I just love it.
Yeah. No, it is quite funny. It's also got, the last couple of episodes we've been talking about windows and doors and numbers. They're all in this song. There's the numbers. There's roll of tens. There's the numbers 16. 17, that's the one. One is a number. 4 and 20 windows, and then going in about the windows and doors. The liner notes. I don't know the liner notes, which I looked at, almost completely incomprehensible.
Yeah.
Although I've read other theories that say it is about Dylan and Grossman very clearly.
Yeah.
But they're full of doors and windows. I think Dylan continues to this day to love doors and windows.
Yeah.
I think he loves and mirrors. I think he loves sort of looking glasses. He loves stepping through, not stepping through, going into the doorways. Standing in the doorway.
Yeah.
I just think. But by the way, Judas Priest. This is one of the stupidest fun facts that I unearthed. Are you aware that Judas Priest, the name, is what they call a minced oath?
No.
A minced oath is a substitute word. It's a euphemism to prevent blasphemy. It's like saying heck instead of hell. So Judas Priest, and you do, if you in America, if you would hit your thumb when you're hammering in a nail, some people go, Judas Priest.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's Jesus Christ.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not making that up. It is a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were talking in the section about the Beatles where you heard like everything had been revealed to me listening to it.
Yeah.
Well, this song literally says nothing is revealed, which maybe says exactly what the difference between the two.
Yeah.
Bob is it's why I've said this before, but the I imagine being around when he went into his Christian phase must have been so bewildering as a fan, because this guy where there was never anything but grey area, never any black and white, suddenly says there's a black and there's a white, there's a damned and there's a saved. And yeah, I just love that. And muttered underneath his breath, nothing is revealed.
And who the hell is the little neighbor boy?
Who's the little neighbor boy?
What the fuck? It just comes out of, you're forever trying to grasp the song. But then the little neighbor boy muttering underneath his breath, and the little neighbor boy who carried him to rest. What even does that mean? I love that. I mean, I love it. The no one tried to say a thing when they took him out in jest. I love everything about this because it's all wrong. It's just it's a complete mindfuck.
Yeah. I've written on my notes a Kerry note here, which I'm seeing more and more. Windows and doors, but also really obvious, weird ways of phrasing things that don't make sense. I do recall him very well. In fact, he just left my sight. Well, if someone's just left, you don't say, I do recall him, he's upstairs. I do recall him very well, he's just here a minute ago.
No, in fact, he just left my sight. I do love this song. I never, ever get tired of this song. I've listened to this song dozens of times just in the last couple of weeks. And it's just wonderful. There's a fellow calling you down the road and they say his name is Priest. Even something like they say his name is. I think the Beatles, in Rocky Raccoon, which I quoted to some length the other week, but they say who called herself the man who called himself Dan. They say his name is Priest. Again, that could be it's a very Dylan-esque sort of thing. Yeah. It's not just his name is Priest.
Yeah.
They say his name is Priest.
Well, it's also like I find the final verse, Bob Dylan never explains his songs, and it looks like he's explaining his song, but he's absolutely not. So, the moral of the story, the moral of this song is simply that one should never be where one does not belong. Don't know what that's got anything to do really with the song. So when you see your neighbour carrying something, help him with his load, and don't go mistaking paradise for that home across the road. It's sort of simple and trite in a song that's nothing but confusion. And I think, I know Dylan's very loves William Blake, and I was thinking if William Blake's got the songs of innocence and experience, then John Wesley Harding is the songs of confusion and nightmares. It's like this, just what dark, confusing, strange album. Yeah.
I had a theory about one should never be where one does not belong, which actually jibes with your theory about it being about the music business. Because I think, Dylan, despite what he says, is a poet, and he doesn't really belong in that house of prostitution. At least that's what a lot of people say, that the 4 and 20 windows with a woman's face in every one is kind of like a giant brothel.
Yeah, almost Babylon, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the Babylon, it's the brothel of show business. Yeah. And, he really shouldn't be there. He certainly shouldn't be there with Albert Grossman.
Yeah.
And I think that is partially what he's saying. After John Wesley Harding, I don't know the exact time because there is no exact time, but he ditched Grossman and he signed a new contract with Columbia. He negotiated, I don't know who negotiated for him or if he did it himself, but anyway, at the end of that contract negotiation, he had one stipulation, and it wasn't about money and it wasn't about sales. It was that he would only deliver albums when he felt like it. And he got that in writing.
Right. Which was, I imagine, very rare.
Oh yeah,
then,
I don't think it had been done before.
Because albums were. That's what amazes me about. Well, one of the main things that amazes me about music in the 60s and 70s, just how much great music was being made back to back. For instance, I love Thin Lizzy. They had a 4-album deal initially. First 3 albums, I love some of it, but weird as hell. Weird, no one would have ever listened to it kind of thing. So record labels would give you a little bit of leeway. Now, if your first album doesn't hit, it's really hard to get back. But and then it's 4, 5, 6 years between albums kind of thing. It's a weird way the industry's changed.
Yeah. It's probably why, we look back at those days and think in 1967. I mean, we didn't get into it, but maybe one day we will get into the other stuff that came out that year, like Disraeli Gears by Cream, which, you know, is a psychedelic take on the blues.
Yeah.
And it was the beginning of psychedelic takes on the blues, you know, and there was a lot of that going on. But the Doors' first and second albums both came out in 67. And Donovan's greatest hits.
Well, I listened to Disraeli. I had listened to Disraeli Gears before, but it wasn't an album I knew that well. I knew a lot of the songs from it, but I listened to it a week or so ago, and I really loved it because I love that sort of music. I love blues music, and it was an interesting take on the blues. But I did think in my head, I was like, I can see Bob Dylan rolling his eyes at this, listening to it in 1967.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was Bob Dylan Approximately with Kerry Shale
And Daniel Crespinsay. Produced by Robin Guise.
and recorded at Lipsync Post, Soho, London.
For longer bonus episodes, join our Patreon feed.
And if you have a Bobsessive friend, please spread the word.
It ain't quite the end.
We'll just bid farewell till we meet again.
I read the news today, oh boy.
We could have you do that.